Today we're going to review the a value in a quadratic equation, what it does and how to find it, how to use it. We're also going to review other parts of a quadratic. So for the warm-up, factor and find the zeros of x squared plus 4x minus 5 equals 0. Sketch the function. So one way to do that, to factor, is we could use the box and circle, or we could use guess and check. So I'll show you both. All right, so box and circle, make our box with our circle. We have our x squared, our 4x, and our minus 5. And we want to multiply the first term and the last term. What multiplies to negative 5x squared? That adds to the middle circle, which should be 4x. All right, so what are two numbers that multiply to negative 5 that add to 4? And that would be 5 and negative 1. So let's put those in the box in either order. 1 multiplies to x squared, that would be x and x. X plus 5 is 5x. X minus 1 is negative 1x. So there's the factored form, x plus 5, x minus 1. If the coefficient, the number in front is 1, you could also just look at what multiplies to negative 5 that adds to the 4 by using guess and check, and you should get the same answer, which again is x plus 5 times x minus 1, and that equals 0. So now we're going to solve this. We're going to find the zeros. So when you solve it, you set each part equal to 0 and solve. So here we want to know what makes x plus 5 equals 0, and you'd subtract 5 from each side. So one of the answers is negative 5. And here what makes x minus 1 equals 0, you add 1 to each side, and x is 1. So if you were to sketch the function, negative 5 would be a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 would be a 0. And if you look at this a value in front, the number in front of the x squared, it's positive, and so that means our graph will be a U-shaped instead of upside down. So here's our sketch of that quadratic function. There are many ways to write the quadratic function. So one is in factored form. So in factored form, again, this would give us the zeros. So R1 and the R2 are the zeros. And we could say the opposite of, because of these negatives right here. So the opposite of. So for example, the plus 5, the 0 was negative 5. The minus 1, the 0 was positive 1. So that's what I mean by that. Those are the zeros. The a value is the number in front. And we yesterday looked at, if you know the zeros and another point, how can you find the a value? And we do know that if the a value is positive, it's going to be a U-shaped up, or a smiley face. If the a value is negative, it's going to be upside down, or like a frowny face. All right, so here's an example. How would we find the zeros? One of the zeros would be 6, and one of the zeros would be negative 1. And again, I don't give you the a value, but that would tell us if it's a U-shaped up or upside down. Okay, let's take a look at it in standard form. Standard form looks like this, where you have an x squared and an x, and then the number by itself. A is the number in front of the x squared, B is the number in front of the x, and C is the number by itself. And here, the a value is 2, the b value is 3, and the c value is negative 10. This would tell you that it's a smiley face up graph, and then you could factor it to find the zeros. So again, investigation, what does the a value tell you about the quadratic? Let's look again and see, what does that say? So with the graphing calculator, graph the parent function and describe how the a value changes it. Okay, so it gives you the instructions. It says open a graph page, so we can do that two ways. Scratchpad graph, or open a graph page from the home screen. And where it says f1 of x, we're going to type in the first function, which would be x squared plus 3x plus 2. So x squared plus 3x plus 2. Hit enter. Here the a value is 1, and you can see that it's a U-shaped up graph. All right, so here it is. Step 3, press tab. Okay, so let's see. So here the a value is 1, and we know our graph looks something like this. Let's change the a value, and let's make the a value 2. So that's the only thing we're changing, so it says press tab. To put another equation in, whoops, tab. All right, so we're in the same equation but the 2. 2x squared plus 3x plus 2. And you can see it's still U-shaped up, and it got skinnier, and it moved. Okay, so a equals 2. It got skinnier, and it also kind of moved up like this. Oops. So it got skinnier, a is 2 skinnier, and it moved up like that. Still a U-shaped up graph. Okay, let's take a look at the next part. What if we put a 3 in there? What does the value of the 3 do? So again, hit tab. We'll put the 3x squared plus the 3x plus the 2. And again, it got even skinnier. It's still U-shaped up and so on. Okay, let's try putting a 0.5 in. Okay, so tab 0.5 x squared plus 3x plus 2. Make a prediction. What will it do? It got wider. And then let's make it negative. Okay, so tab negative, and use this negative right here, not the minus. So negative x squared plus the 3x plus the 2. And we can see that it goes upside down. So let's summarize then what we've looked at in our calculator. So if the absolute value of the a value, that number in front, is bigger than 1, it's going to be skinnier than the original function. If the absolute value of a is less than 1, so like 0.5, 0.75, it's fatter than the original. And if a is negative, the function will be upside down. So again, review, how do we find the a graph from an equation? The first step is we'll find the x-intercepts, which in other words are the zeros. So here are the x-intercepts, the zeros. And so we could say x equals -1 and x equals 3. We find another point on the graph, and the easiest one to use is the y-intercept, which would be 0, 6. So here's the y-intercept right here where it crosses the y-axis. We're going to plug in and solve for a. Okay, so we're going to write it in factored form. I forgot to write that down. All right, so here's factored form. Y equals a times x plus 1. We do the opposite of the zeros, x minus 3. And then we're going to plug in for x and y. So we'll say, all right, 6 equals a, x, and x is 0. Okay, so 0 plus 1, and then 0 minus 3. Okay, so we plugged in 0 for x, 6 for y, and then we have 6 equals a times, we're going to multiply 1 times -3, which is -3. We'll solve for a, divide by -3. So here a is -2. And so when we write the equation, we're just plugging back in to this factored form, and so our final answer will be y equals -2 times x plus 1, x minus 3. If we were to graph that, it would be upside down and skinnier than the original. That's what the a value tells us. So today you're going to practice a bunch of review. Can you factor and find the zeros for the first part and sketch it? Can you find the zeros without sketching it? And then can you find the a value?